Ah, I hit the thing on the way around. I was supposed to like do the whole spin thing there and like
It's like
really
the
nail
Bruce
it.
Buffer 360 kind of.
Yeah, just like, oh, welcome everyone to the 6th round post-fight show for UFC 219 with me, Zane Simon, and my co-host Eddie Mercado. We are here following Cris Cyborg versus Holly Holm. And Eddie, please explain to me, which rounds did Holly Holm win and why?
Okay, so I gave Holly Holm the first round and the second round. I feel like she was doing a good job at, although she was not landing the heavier strikes per se.
Or more of them. She got outlanded and got hit with the harder shots in both rounds.
It didn't feel like that watching live. It definitely did not feel as if Cyborg was landing more early on.
Okay.
I don't know. The way it looked to me was Holly was doing her typical kind of shuffle through her moves, and her southpaw cross was landing, and once she found herself inside, she would get the underhooks and stall Cyborg up against the cage. I thought that was a pretty smart tactic.
That was very smart. If she actually knew how to have any clinch offense whatsoever, that would have been like a major turning point in the fight.
Well, I mean, a lot of it could have just been her using everything she had to control the beast that is Cyborg.
Yeah,
you know
but what's the last time you remember Holly Holm landing significant offense from the clinch?
She's got knees from the clinch. I forget who she fought where she actually.
Yeah, exactly. You forget. It's a nice theory. It's a charming idea.
Yeah, I forget a lot of Holly stuff though. You know, outside of her head kicks, I mean, what is Holly Holm done in the cage?
Yeah, and that's kind of this. That was this fight for me. I mean, there's a lot of there's so much. It's so funny to me because the narrative coming in was like, oh, Holly Holm's the counter puncher. Cyborg's gonna walk in on this dangerous counter puncher, and she doesn't know what's gonna come after her. And then in the fight, what you actually see is Holm leading all fight and getting countered all fight. Like your better counter fighter, clearly all fight is Cris Cyborg.
And credit to Cyborg for this though. I mean, she was cool, calm, and collected the entire fight. No matter what position she was in, back to the cage, it didn't matter. Nose bleeding, it didn't matter. She was just 100%. It seemed as if she felt like she was in control the whole time and nothing could phase her.
Yeah.
Because nothing could phase her. I mean, Holly just didn't have the firepower to deal.
Yeah, I mean, Holly Holm, her best strikes come on the counter, but she's always been a fighter that fills that intermediate space with volume that doesn't pack a lot of punch to it, often ends up coming short, and has gotten countered by pretty much every fighter that's willing to sit back and wait and watch for it. I mean, even there's a solid argument even Bethe Correia won a round off Holly Holm just waiting on her key eyes and throwing right hands over the top.
Yep, it's classic Holly Holm, but I honestly believe she did as good as she could do. I believe she was as prepared as she could be.
Yep.
And
agreed.
They could fight a million times, and I think it would look identical or worse to that each time.
Yep, I absolutely agree. I think that the way that Holly Holm has been brought along in her career, there was no way she was going to make massive adjustments going into this fight. And the basics of the style matchup, a volume striker who throws a lot of low-powered strikes against a striker who, in Cyborg, has been patiently turning herself into a pressure counter fighter, McGregor style. Cyborg's not as clean as McGregor, technically, I know that, but that's the game plan she's slowly been molding herself after, to stalk people down, make them throw back with power as they are forced to fight off the fence. It's just always going to favor Cyborg.
Yeah, because no one can really hurt her. You know what I mean? Like, that's perfect. If you know your opponent can't hurt you, then you can just stand in the middle of the cage and be like, you have to come to me. Like, there's no two ways about it.
Yep. Speaking of which, Khabib Nurmagomedov, man, there were a lot of people out there like Edson Barboza is going to catch him with that flying knee. And Khabib was like, look, Khabib was like, you can throw all the flying knees you want at me. It matters zero.
In fact, I think Khabib threw more flying knees, if anything, than Barboza did. And, let me ask you this. So any kind of title, whatever aside, who is the baddest lightweight on the planet?
It's got to be Khabib right now.
Has to be.
Has to be.
Oh my goodness! Like this was incredible. He made it look like Edson Barboza was like caught in a world star hip hop video, you know, like just getting his ass beat and like not even wanting to be in the fight at all, but someone just like beating the shit out of him. Like,
and that's the thing. Edson Barboza, there are criticisms of his style. He's got ways that he can be attacked, but he's tough as shit. Like he has gone through so many tough wars where he will stand in, he will rally back, he will fight his hardest all fight. And Khabib just broke him.
Man, and Barboza came out looking really good, really sharp, attacking the legs. Like, yeah, he's doing well. But like the second that Khabib got his hands on him and got him down, like he made sure that Edson Barboza did not return to his feet the same fighter.
Yeah.
Like he began just unloading a barrage of just unchecked, unblocked ground strikes that literally beat the sense out of Barboza to where...
I mean, Connor and I were talking about this in the vivisection beforehand, and Khabib, you know, he may not necessarily, like, his cardio may be a little bit of a mirage, where it may not be necessarily as amazing as it looks. It is amazing. The thing is that the way he fights, his cardio is always going to be better than yours. Because the way he will punish you, the way he will fight you, makes you more tired than him. You know? There's no way to stand up to the kind of offense he puts out and the kind of pressure he puts out and to be the fresher fighter than Khabib Nurmagomedov.
It's that plus the fact that Khabib is always fighting his game.
Yep.
So of course he's conditioned for that. You know what I mean? Yeah. So if you're fighting his game, of course you're going to get tired before him. So it's like a lose-lose. Yep. This guy is tough to deal with. Man.
Yeah, I mean, he's gotten to a point where it really is a thing that Ferguson, and it'll probably be Ferguson, because I think Khabib and Ferguson and everybody else in the UFC at this point is in there totally to rights to just say, I'm not even thinking about a McGregor fight. Like, that's not on my radar. I don't imagine it's going to happen. I'm not out there pretending this fight's going to happen. Because all of the power and all of the whims of making any fight with Conor McGregor are on none of the side of any other fighter in the UFC. So
yeah, it's a pipe dream at this point.
Yeah, like Khabib, he's totally in his rights to just say, look, I want to fight Tony. I want to win this fight against Edson Barboza. I want to fight Tony Ferguson, and then I'll think about the future and move on, see where I want to go from there. I don't care what Conor McGregor's up to, because what can you peg on a fight with Conor McGregor? It's just not in the cards. And to that extent, you know, Tony Ferguson, he's got to fight Khabib if he's not going to get that McGregor fight.
Yeah, man, Khabib is the king without a crown.
Yep.
Like, that's why I had to break out the old Schmergerschming hat.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he's very special. I'm wearing the crown for him. I don't want him to have to go through any extra weight on his shoulders. So I'm taking on the burden of wearing his crown for him. But he seriously just made the number 4 guy in the world look like an amateur.
Yeah.
And someone in Barboza who's the consummate professional, who always looks sharp. And and he you know, I'm watching this fight with some people and they're like, and of course they hear him talk afterwards. He's like, hey, when the money's gone, Conor will be back. You know what I mean? And they're like, oh, I like this guy. But it's kind of hard to watch him fight because he's so brutal.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like you feel like you're watching one of these Raw Street fights. And these are professionals. Like, this is top of the food chain. So
before that, Dan Hooker beat Marc Diakiese. And he made a call to who wants to see Dan Hooker at UFC Perth, and the crowd is kind of like, yeah, I don't know.
Who are you again?
Yeah. Maybe, whatever.
Do we have to watch UFC Perth if that's the case? Oh,
yeah.
man.
But, I mean, it's a solid win for Dan Hooker against a fighter in Diakiese who keeps running and has yet to figure out the idea that he's just not technical enough to out-athlete every single person in the UFC.
Or creative enough.
Yeah.
It's facts. He's just not, he's
Yep.
got a game that will just lay on the regional scene.
Yep.
But when you actually fight people with technique, you really got to bring more than some athleticism and some flashy techniques.
Yeah, and I thought he would pull the trigger with his hands more and catch Hooker because of that, but he didn't pull the trigger with his punches at all early in this fight. And that let Hooker dictate all the pace. So
yeah, and he was giving up the late takedowns too. Yep. Like it's not a good look, man. He's turning into nothing really fast.
Yeah, he's got to learn this lesson through his losses that he needs to be a deeper, more grounded, basics technical fighter if he's going to win at this level. Because just winging wild overhands and spin kicks and then going for big power slams on people, like anybody who's spent time in the UFC, who's had to train, who's had their losses, who's been knocked back a little, like Hooker is no elite athlete at 155. But he's been in the UFC a few times. He's taken his licks. He's learned his lessons. He's done his training. He's done his homework. And suddenly Diakiese is just like, there's no game there. There's nothing to watch.
What are you going to do, though? It's a sad sight because you can just feed him, or not feed him, but keep giving him like the lowest level guys you can find. But at some point, it's just like, well, he's actually the lowest guy on the roster.
Yeah, even then he runs into somebody like Drakkar Klose, who's got like a stifling game, if not a very well-rounded one, and that stifling game is enough to beat Marc Diakiese.
Yeah, and even like in this particular situation, Daniel Hooker's game, which is like, this real low output, outfighting kind of game, and then he ends up getting a guillotine submission off of a poor takedown. Like, what? This fight makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, and it, unfortunately for Hooker, does not leave him in super exciting position for everybody to be like, yeah, I want to see him fight a dude in Perth. I don't know.
Yeah, no, because he's been like alternating wins and losses in like his last 8 fights before this. This is like his first string of back-to-back wins since making it into the UFC. So you can't get too high on Daniel Hooker here. Although he that's 2 finishes in a row, but don't expect a title run anytime soon.
Yeah, hopefully, let's see. Maybe they could give him somebody like Li Jinglong down in Australia.
Sure. Oh, that's excellent.
That would be a cool fight. See him fight the Leech. That'd be a fun action fight in the region. Hopefully they give him something like that, get him on that card, because, he should get a little something for going on a run. I want to see him make ends meet like that. But, yeah, it's not the kind of beautiful fight that makes everybody wake up and go, oh, my God, this guy is the future.
Yeah, definitely not.
And speaking of not being the future, then on that point, Cynthia Calvillo meets the OG Cynthia Calvillo, Carla Esparza, and took a loss that she did not think was coming at all.
You know what? I kind of had a feeling that this might have happened to her. Like I was like, man, I really feel like I'm picking Calvillo here, but I feel like Esparza just might take it just because she's been there.
Yep, that's why I picked Esparza.
Oh, did you pick Esparza? Good call.
Yeah. I picked her because you don't beat the OG being a copy. You just don't.
Yeah. These are facts. Esparza, like I gave that first round to Calvillo.
Yep.
But come round 2, Esparza started showing layers. You know what I mean? And this was really the first time that Calvillo actually. Well, this was a big step up. First of all, former champion. But this was the first time she faced someone that could actually throw a layered game at her. She had a right hand. She had a leg kick. She had a single leg that she made Calvillo think about. So, it was just too much. Calvillo just could not get her game going while fending off those 3 attacks.
And to her unfortunate discredit, I felt bad pointing this out when I was running the Twitter account. She's at the end there. She's like bouncing around and like dancing and stuff. And it's like, if you got that much energy, you really should have like put that into the fight that you were losing. because you just got outpointed and you're at the end here. You know, Esparza just like, she looks drained. She looked like she spent everything she could to win that fight. And that's why she wins the fight, you know?
Yeah, it could have been one of those situations where, because Calvillo kind of just resorted to this, you know, counter striker who was really just looking for this counter right hand the whole time. And because of that, she was getting clipped and she was getting kicked in the leg. And it's like, maybe she didn't feel like she was as behind as it looked.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that Jorge Masvidal mentality, the young veteran mentality, although she's kind of an old rookie to her credit. But it's that mentality of only thinking about the tactical fight in the moment rather than the bigger, you know, the bigger picture of how to win an entire fight. She's just like, well, I didn't get hit that hard. Nothing hit me that clean. You didn't really do anything. So I'm like, I feel like you didn't really do anything to me. I'm fine. I'm ahead. And it's not really the idea of like, well, you're not, you know, you're getting hit twice every once you hit her. So you're not ahead. You got to actually pay attention to the whole round, and you got to work to do things to win a round.
Yeah, and I didn't get a chance to hear what they were saying in her corner, so I don't know what kind of advice she was getting. But, you know, this is probably just a lesson learned for Calvillo. Yep. I expect her to do that.
It's just a fighter really early in her career who's used to only having success, and she's running up against somebody who's just willing to work harder.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Esparza did, is she showed that she wanted it more. And, you know, she showed that she just had the deeper tool shed and more to pull from. So good on her. This is the first time she's strung together back-to-back wins since the Ultimate Fighter. So
yeah,
good on her.
Big credit to her to close the gate on a fast-rising prospect too. You know, it's not a huge setback for Calvillo. She can go back and she can continue to sharpen her tools and come back, and I have the feeling she can develop to be a better fighter than Esparza without a lot of work, but she needs to be shown that she has to put in that work. So hopefully that's what this loss is for her. Before that, Neil Magny won a fight over Carlos Condit that I was really hoping would be a lot more exciting. And frankly, I don't know. Like, I need to look up the fight metric stats on this, because I think a little bit that Condit, like, Magny got a lot of benefit just for hitting takedowns.
Yeah,
like,
he did.
That wasn't necessarily a lot he did offensively off of those takedowns. He just got them. You know, there weren't any sub attempts. And yeah, now looking at the scoring, Condit outstruck Magny 10-9 in round 1. 10-6 in round 2, and then it was 17-17 in round 3. Like, I understand that Condit lost, and I was willing to give the fight to Magny, but I'm actually a little surprised that the judges gave that to Magny, because it really is basically just rewarding him for his takedown work.
I don't know. I think he was definitely landing the better strikes there in the third. I think he was really putting his hands together. Like, his straight punches were really on point. I think he was doing a really good job. I mean, I scored it for Magny. I gave Condit the first round, and then I gave the second to Magny. I mean, I feel like in the second round the strikes were so even that you have to go with the takedowns as being the determining factor there. But yeah, in the third round, I definitely feel like Magny was letting his hands go in a more effective way than was Condit. Even though Condit came out pressing and he was really trying to work his elbows, but like, it seemed like his game plan was to just back Magny up to the cage and then maybe catch him with a big elbow there. But Magny did a great job of just skirting out after the first initial attack that Condit would throw at him, and then, you know, Magny's back in open space or engaging in the clinch.
Yeah, I mean, credit to Dom Cruz. He had a good read on this, which is that Magny was catching a lot of Condit's kicks and stopping a lot of Condit's combination work because of it, because so much of Condit's combination work comes behind his kicking game, where he'll throw a kick and then he'll throw a whole set of strikes behind it. So Magny just catching kicks early in the fight stopped a lot of Condit's chain striking offense. But I don't know. It's one of those fights. I guess, like, I'm not upset Condit won it or Magny won it. I'm a little surprised all the judges saw it that way, even though I know he got the takedowns. I just don't, takedowns without offense to me are not offense. But it doesn't make
It's not
me more
offense at all, though. Not even a little bit.
only
I'll
if
put it to you this way: it's more offense than being taken down.
it's more offense than being taken down. Fair, but unless they're like big slams or you really, really like hold somebody down and stifle their offense for a massive portion of the round, I don't put any weight behind it.
What was the official scorecards for this one? 30-27 for 2?
Yeah, I think it's 30-27 for 2 and then 29-28. Yep.
Okay.
So I don't, I like the move towards control matters for almost nothing. Like everything else has to be totally equal to factor control in.
Yeah, yes. Definitely.
Yeah. And I'll give it credit. A lot of this fight was pretty equal. So maybe that's just all it is. It's not a win that makes me more excited for what Neil Magny can do. Let me put it that way.
Oh, no. I mean, Neil Magny's a gatekeeper to the top 10. Like,
Yeah.
period. You don't get any more of a top 10 gatekeeper than Neil Magny.
Yeah. And it sucks to see that Condit may be firmly outside that gate at this point in his career.
Well, I mean, I think it's even incredible that Condit is ranked in the top 10 despite not winning a fight since 2015.
Yeah, no, that's just the rankings being trash. So
well, it's the division,
The division is stagnant and the rankings are trash. It's a two-part problem.
Yeah, Condit has more in him, I'm sure, but it's basically the end of the line for him.
All right. Before that, on the prelims, Michael Alexeyuk beat Khalil Roundtree, and apparently Roundtree must have watched footage on Alexeyuk from his regional fights and just been like, I'm going to do what all those dudes that lost did. That's the way you beat this dude. Because he followed the I'm going to lose to Mikhail Alexeyuk game to a T. To just pour offense on his skull early, gas yourself to shit, and then let him pick you apart for the rest of the fight.
Yeah, what a bad game plan that was. That was like the worst absolute game plan you could have came in with. Like, he literally emptied his entire gas tank in the first 2 minutes. It was a 2-minute sprint, and then the rest of the fight is Roundtree having a little bit of gas that he would dump out in the first 10 seconds, and then just complete nothingness, just fatigue for days.
Maybe he's got like some weird pheromone that he exerts or something for Alexeyuk, because you go back and watch his regional fights, and this is literally every fight he's in. Even he'll fight some like juiced up BJJ dude, and the dude will just come out throwing haymakers and bombing on him for like a minute or two, and then gas all the hell out, and Alexeyuk will come back and TKO him with like more accurate volume striking. And that's every single major win of his. And Roundtree, I can't believe he just fell into that same trap.
Yeah, but I mean, you can understand why. It's like, oh, you have this 22-year-old noob. Let me come out and just put it on him. I'm Mr. Super Athlete over here. I've got some quick first round finishes under my belt. Let me come do my thing. But it just didn't work.
I would understand why if he hadn't lost back-to-back fights just in 2016. Maybe
he just got greedy and really thought he can just steamroll this guy, and it just
and to be fair to Alexeyuk, what he does is he comes forward pressing a pace on people and forcing them to react to him because he's just walking forward trying to throw combinations. So he invites that fight. So it's a credit to him for it, but Roundtree really had to be a little more tactical than that.
Yeah, that was crazy. The funniest thing, too, is on the broadcast, the commentators are like, oh, Roundtree's carrying around all this muscle. That's why he's gassing. Like, no, motherfucker, he just sprinted for 2 minutes straight, like right out of the gate. Anybody would be tired, if not more so. The fact that he's still breathing is incredible.
Yeah.
So, like, towards the end, Roundtree's on his back, and I'm like, and he starts, like, doing these pitter-patter strikes from his back. And I'm like, what the hell is he doing? Like, get up, work for a submission, try to sweep. But then I'm like, you know what? He's probably so gassed that that's, like, literally all he can do is, like, to not look like he's just getting obliterated, you know, these little hammer fists from the bottom.
Yep.
Poor showing, though. Real poor, real low FIQ for Roundtree in this one.
Yeah, Roundtree firmly keeps himself right in the middle of that sort of weird bastard pack that is the light heavyweight division of just these sort of half-talented, half-totally broken fighters that are good at just enough things to keep them dangerous and then bad at just enough things to get them beat by anybody on any given fight.
Yeah, this just... I don't know. It's a sad sight. It makes me feel bad, you know, because he looks like he should be the part, and he's been the part, but then he does this, and you really have to question, like, what does this fall on coaching? Was this like his own game plan? Like, what's going on here, man?
For that, Miles jury put a absolute ass whipping on Rick Glenn. A bad enough ass whipping that I felt bad for Conor because Rick Glenn is his boy. And on the vivisection, he picked Rick Glenn. And he's just like, I think he can make this happen. And like, people were getting on me because the first 2 rounds, I was saying the first 2 rounds might have been 10-8s. Like, I scored at 30-27, but jury was outstriking Glenn 3-1 through the first 2 rounds.
I gave the second round a 10-8 for sure.
Yeah. Like, it was about as one-sided a reasonable fight as you can have.
Yeah. Everywhere.
Yeah.
It was crazy. Levels, so much polish, so much. And that's what's crazy, though, is like you have such an edge in technique, yet, you know, and believe me, you know, Glenn is as tough as they come, but, you know, you still, when you're that better than your opponent, you really need to be putting people away. You know,
that's fair.
It's like, but that's jury. You know, he's all tech, no rec. You know, he just lacks this certain savagery. Like, he's super surgical out there.
Yeah.
He's doing his thing and making the smartest moves and cutting the perfect angles and returning the perfect shots, but he just lacks this certain killer instinct that I just don't believe can be taught. Like, you either have it or you don't.
Well, certainly not at the point that jury's in his career, where, you know, he's been he may only be 29, but he's been around since 2008. He's nearly a decade into his career, and there are probably not a lot of new tricks that are going into his game at this point.
Yeah, I mean, and he's pretty polished as is.
Yeah.
It's just that oomph. He just lacks that oomph.
And for Rick Glenn, the unfortunate truth is that he's just not a very good athlete. He is tough as shit. He will walk forward. He is tireless. He is a Terminator. If you fight him the way that Gavin Tucker did, or Khalil Roundtree fought Mikhail Alexejek, and you're just like, I'm just going to go put it on this dude, you will get broken on him. But if you do what jury does and you're just a little bit slick, you pick your shots, you stay on the balls of your feet, then Glenn had no answers.
Nah, this was, this was as close to a flawless victory without getting a finish as I think you can get. You know, I mean, aside from a couple up kicks and a little bit of ground strikes from his back, Glenn honestly had nothing to offer up.
So the question is, what do they do with jury now? He doesn't fight that often, and is there a clear, like, next fight in the top of the featherweight division? Maybe Renato Moicano or Yair Rodriguez. Both dudes are coming off a loss, but
damn, I was about to suggest Charles Oliveira rematch, but he's coming off a loss also.
Well, he's still at lightweight. Chucky Olives.
Oh, is he?
Fell there last.
Oh, that's right.
You know, if he can wait for it, Chan Sung Jung would be a solid. I mean, anybody that waits for Chan Sung Jung, I just want to see Chan Sung Jung fight people.
Yeah, you know what? I would like to see him fight Renato Moicano.
Yeah.
I think they remind me of each other in a way.
Yeah.
So I think that would be kind of interesting, a little bit of a mirror match.
Yeah, I'd be happy to see that too. And, you know, I mean, Moicano may be coming off a loss, but like I said, Jerry just doesn't fight often enough to be a, you know, he can, that still, to me, it makes sense for me as a fight. Like, he needs to fight somebody like that to establish himself again as a top-ranked fighter in the division.
And a lot of that division's coming off of a loss.
Yeah. So before that, Marvin Vettori drew with Omari Akhmedov. What did you think of the draw?
I'm not upset with the draw. I thought it was a fun fight with a light heavyweight feel. You know, I'm okay with the draw. I gave the first 2 rounds to Akhmedov, and I can easily see how anybody would give that 3rd round a 10-8 for Vettori. So they can do it again for all I care.
Yeah, I mean, I was happy to see Vettori show up like that in round 3, but man, I wish he'd shown up like that in round 2. It was like, finally, after dropping 2 rounds, he's like, oh, wait, if I just actually trust myself to pressure fight this dude, I can break him. And he came out and did it, and it was perfect. And I thought he would do that all fight, but it took 2 full rounds for him to get it in his head. Hopefully it's just a learning experience for Vettori. I'm happy he picked up the draw, even if I would have scored it maybe for Akhmedov scoring on my own. But Vettori is obviously the prospect, so for me, seeing him not take that loss is nice.
Yeah, I gave it 29-28 for Akhmedov also, the first 2 specifically. But I think the crazy part was I think Vettori expected Akhmedov to gas out.
Yeah.
Which he did, but what was crazy was, yes, Akhmedov gassed out and his strikes became slower, but his timing never went away.
Yeah.
Like, he was aware that he was slower, and he compensated with his timing. So yeah, he was slower, but he was still landing those crazy hooks just because his timing was so impeccable.
I also think the way that the power he put on Vettori early in the fight in round 1 scared Vettori off committing to any of his punches for the rest of round 1 and all of round 2. And it only got to the point where he realized he was losing, and his coaches lit a fire under him, that he started recommitting to punching. Because for those first 2 rounds, he basically relied only on his kicking game.
Which, I mean, it's understandable because Akhmedov was throwing some heat. I mean, he was throwing some heat. Even in the 2nd round, like, he comes out and he starts kicking the leg really hard, screaming, and then comes up top screaming. Yeah, that was fun. It was a fun showing. And
it was a cool fight. I'm glad it ended in a draw. And, yeah, they could run it back, or if they move on, I'll be fine with that, too. Like I say, I mean, Vettori's the talent that I'm interested in seeing going forward. Akhmedov he's the tough vet that you match up a young kid with. See, like, can you handle this dude who only throws power shots at 1 speed but has some reasonable timing? Before that, Louis Smolka lost to Matthews. Seriously, Matthews with a U.
Matthews?
Yeah, Matthews.
Methuselah?
Matthews, Nicolau. And Nicolau, shit, he looked good. He looked better than he ever has before. No question.
Man, that left hook. Woo, that is butter. That is absolutely butter. He was absolutely crippling Smolka anytime he touched him with that thing. That was fun to watch.
And he's always had the left hook, but the thing that I was happy to see in this fight, and the reason I picked Smolka initially, is because Nicolau always used to just wait on everything for only the occasional left hook. He would just sit back and wait for his opponent to come in and then try to throw 1 left hook for whatever they threw in return. And then in this fight, he actually filled some of that intermediate space with a jab and with, like, just a little bit of extra offense, and, like, just that little uptick in volume for him with the power he has and the natural timing he has on his counters. That makes him a infinitely better fighter.
Yeah, and I think he was very smart too, because early on when he hurt Smolka and dropped him with the left hook, he followed him to the ground to try to finish him. But of course, Smolka survived. He recovered. He's tough as it gets. But I think he found a bit of comfort being on top on the ground, which later on in the third round when he was tired, it gave him the okay to say, you know what, I feel comfortable enough not getting swept, not getting submitted on top of this guy. Let me go ahead and get the takedown, try to catch my breath a bit, because, I mean, he was throwing a lot of strikes out there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I thought that was very smart, you know, feeling safe on top, so going ahead and taking the fight there despite winning on the feet, catching your breath so you don't get caught with something sloppy on the feet. Because Smolka can throw spinning back kicks to the face, you know, like why, you know, play it smart, and that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, really nice win for Nicolau, and reestablishes him after his USADA break as a top-ranked lightweight. And I would, let's see, who's even free, or top-ranked flyweight, rather. Who's even free at flyweight right now? Well, Tim Elliott won. You do Elliott versus Nicolau?
Sure. Why not? Keep the vets rolling. And that's actually perfect because, you know, this is 2 vets in a row now for Nicolau. So if he can get a 3rd vet in a row, that'll catapult him, you know, right up there in the mix.
It's either that or he waits for the winner of somebody like Pantoja versus Dustin Ortiz or Figueiredo versus Joseph Morales or something like that. One of the other brand new top-ranked flyweight, or one of the brand new ranked flyweights that's fighting in the future. But honestly, Elliott might just be the right move.
Yeah, I mean, he already has a win over Moraga, who's ranked number 9. Elliott seems like the perfect mix. Or even like Brandon Moreno. Like, I'm not even upset with that either.
Yeah, although Moreno is coming off a loss, it would still be a good fight.
Fun. Holy shit.
Who?
Ben Nguyen?
Yeah, Ben Nguyen. Who is Ben Nguyen fighting? I've forgotten now. Ben Nguyen is fighting Lucia Formiga. Yeah.
Ooh, I like that too.
Yeah. So before that, Tim Elliott, Marc De La Rosa, and I don't ever want to say this about a fighter. I feel a little bad saying this right now even, but did De La Rosa give up?
You mean just say I don't want to be in this fight anymore, so I'm gonna go for get taken out by this. I'm gonna let you put me in an anaconda.
Yeah, because like Elliott was on his back in top ride, and then he switched around to the front headlock, and all the while he was transitioning, De La Rosa just laid like in turtle with both forearms on the mat. Never even made the smallest attempt to move while Smolka transitioned on top of him into the front headlock series, and then tapped immediately afterward.
I don't know. There's something weird with that anaconda though, because remember when Elliott, he went to it in the second round or earlier, and De La Rosa actually bit him.
Oh yeah.
Remember that? Like, what the hell is that about? Like, what kind of panic is setting in to where you're biting dudes out here?
That also, like, that too brings me back to the whole, like, did he quit thing? Because if you're biting people, that means that the fight is way too far in your head. Like, you're getting into an emotional place where you're not in control over what you're doing in a fight.
Like, you're legit fighting out there. You're not competing at that point.
And if you're legit fighting, that's a more likely place where you're just going to be like, fuck it, I give up. I don't want to do this shit, you know?
But it's so weird because, like, the transition was De La Rosa went for a triangle attempt.
Yeah.
You know, and then Elliott just kind of spins out of it, and De La Rosa hangs out in the turtle position and just kind of lets him do it to him.
Yep.
Very odd, very weird. But, like, but once he was in it, he was defending the choke. Like, he did start defending.
Yeah. But he had made no attempts at all to stop it from getting locked in.
I don't know. That's weird. Very weird.
It is. It's especially troubling at flyweight. Well, I mean, I know this is a bantamweight fight, but I assume both guys are going back to flyweight after this. It's especially troubling.
I don't think De La Rosa fights at flyweight, does he?
I think he does.
I thought he's always been a 135er.
Let me see.
When he fought over in Kabate.
Is he a flyweight? Because he looked a little meaty for a featherweight, or a bantamweight, if he's a bantamweight. No, yeah, you're right. He is a career bantamweight. So, 5'4". He's a pretty small bantamweight. Like,
Yeah.
he looked like a flyweight fighting up a division.
Yeah, it looks like he carries around enough body fat to make 125.
Which, to his credit, Elliott does not look like that. At 135, Elliott looked filled out and strong and like a bantamweight. Like, he looked totally natural in the weight class.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. This was interesting. Weird debut for him, man. I don't know.
Yeah. Because for De La Rosa, too, like, if you're going to fight at 135, and especially if he has plans of dropping to 125 in the future, you've got to be fast. Like, you can't give up an opportunity in a scramble to scramble. Every good fighter in that division will eat you up.
He lost a lot of scrambles tonight. He lost a lot of scrambles. And he tried to play a guard game, which is tough. It's so tough in the UFC to play a guard game.
Yep. So back to the featherweight bout, back to Cris Cyborg at the top. Who does she fight next? Is it just Megan Anderson and we're waiting for Anderson? Because, I mean, we can't, like, think Anderson's going to be more competitive than Holly Holm, but that's the only fight that's out there, right?
That is the only fight. Yeah, unless you can. Yeah, yes.
It's either that or they pay Amanda Nunes enough to do a super fight, but Nunes has expressed zero interest in fighting Cris Cyborg, to the extent that she's like, oh, I'd love to be a 2-division champ at bantamweight and featherweight, unless I have to fight Cris Cyborg, because that shit is nuts.
There's legit no competition for Cyborg. She is the most dominant female at that weight class on the planet.
Yeah.
And the surrounding weight classes as well.
I'm going to be fascinated to see how this pay-per-view does, because it's largely sold off of Cyborg's name and off of whether or not people are interested enough in seeing Cyborg, whether she's drawn enough interest off of her long-standing feud with Ronda Rousey that never went anywhere. She's done exceptionally well as a ratings draw on TV for the UFC, but my reactions, or the only metric I really have here is the Twitter response metric, and I didn't get trolled very hard on Twitter doing live play-by-play tonight, which tells me the card was not super popular. Because for big cards, that's where you get all the fanboys coming out that are just constantly like raging at you over every single thing you say, and I didn't get quite enough of that. So I'll be interested to see if this comes in above the 300,000 mark, especially. I think anything above that would be a big win. Anything from 2 to 3 would be like, yeah, that's okay, about what I would expect. Anything below that, and she's not any kind of draw for the UFC.
And even Khabib also, this is like a 1-2 punch right here. But the card sucks. Like, let's be honest, this is a really bad pay-per-view card, or just a card in general. I mean, a lot of, like, it's not very good. You know what I mean?
I liked it going in because I was excited to see Cris Cyborg versus Holm and Barboza versus Nurmagomedov and Carlos Condit, and I could give or take the rest of it. I didn't really care. But like, it didn't deliver, so...
I mean, the card was a little... We got 2 finishes on the night. Like, that's it. The rest were decisions. And exactly. Mike Tyson was in the house, and we didn't have a single knockout. What is that about? You can't do that. Right?
Maybe it's his overpowering sexual assault allegations that are dragging down the KO ratio.
It could be. But the fight kind of dragged on a little bit. It just wasn't... I like that it opened up with the In Memory of Robert Follis. I thought that was a class act, and I felt like that was the UFC being in touch with the community, which is something they've been desperately needing. So excellent touch on that. My Fight Pass actually started going a little wonky when the Khabib fight happened, my Fight Pass stream. So that started pissing me off. But other than that, the fights were competitive, just lacked a bunch of drama. There really wasn't any...
Yeah, I gotta say, for a pay-per-view that I was telling people, like, I'm more excited than y'all are, I came out of it with the, like, yeah, okay, everybody else, maybe you're right here. Maybe this just was not a good card going in.
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
But we got our dominant people being dominant. So I'm okay.
Final note before we shut it all down, you staying up for Ryzen?
Oh, is that tonight? No way.
Yep.
I'll catch it tomorrow, man. It's this time zone between Christmas and New Year's, and I'm just like, I can't.
All right. On that note, you can find me on Twitter at these anytime. You can find Eddie on Twitter at the Eddie Mercado. You can find both of us over at bloodyelbow.com. Give us a like. That's a thumbs up thing down there over on YouTube. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, MMANation.com, DOTCOM. That gives us all the help in the world. If you subscribe, if you like, that is everything we need from life. I swear to God. And
just please like us.
Like us. God damn it. And in the meantime, there's no UFC next week, so I'll be back with the MMA Depressed Us, and we'll have other of our other shows. If I did it, Knuckle Up, Heavy Hands, all the good stuff we do weekend.
6-round retro, Affliction Band, Fedor versus Tim Sylvia.
Eddie will have 6-round retro coming at you for Affliction Band. Tune in for all that. Thanks everyone, and we will see you soon.